Aja. Welcome to the Scenic podcast. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. My legs hurt. I've started exercising again, and I'm already regretting it.
Yeah, I started yoga again like 2 weeks ago, and I was so
hmm
sore the day after. I
hmm
was like, yeah, that's how it feels to start again. Yay me.
Yeah. So I'm doing Pilates and yoga. I like yoga. I don't like Pilates, but something I talk about openly is that I had an open myomectomy last year, and like it messes your stomach muscles up because they cut through a lot of it. And so
Yep.
I feel like I need a little extra something to like get everything back together again. So
Oh,
I've
mhm.
committed to Pilates for this winter, but I am full of regret.
No, but like respect to you for like, I mean, it took me almost 3 years from a C-section and then laparoscopy to remove endometriosis to be like, I might think about starting exercising again.
Yeah, I
So
think for
kudos.
me, part of what made my recovery pretty like I think I had a really smooth recovery from the open myomectomy, and I think it was the yoga. I do I at my peak I was doing yoga like 3, 4 days a week. Now I'm more like 2 days a week. But I think yoga, ballet, all of that stuff. And I like ballet, but I've been feeling a lot of aches and pains, so I haven't been doing so
Mm.
much of it. So I feel like I need to like beef up the stuff like Pilates and yoga so that I can continue to do ballet.
We're that age, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, where you need like supplement exercise
Yes.
to like
To
do
do the
the
exercise you want to
exercise you
do.
actually enjoy.
It's bad. But anyone listening, you're not here to hear us talk about middle age, I suppose.
You know
But maybe
what?
you
It's
are,
an
but
honor to be this age. It's an honor to every year is an honor, but
100%.
like as you get to certain ages, there's just things that you have to do. Like I remember when I turned 30, I was very much like, right, I'm committing to vitamins, I'm committing to removing my makeup at night, I'm committing to a bunch of different things. I said I'd stop biting my nails. I lied about that. I still bite my nails, but
Win some, lose
um
some.
yeah, but it's good to have like those little benchmarkers where you just realize as you age, you have to do more for yourself, and that's okay. The alternative is not reaching certain ages. So it's an honor to be here, but yes, it's like a car. You have to fix more things.
And you have to, yeah, you have to do more maintenance for sure.
More maintenance, more tune-ups.
Yeah. So I I actually brought you on to really also talk about the relationship, our relationship with things, and ultimately consumerism. And we live in a world where it's kind of like what we buy defines who we are, where economic growth is seen as the ultimate measure of progress. And Sally Rooney just the other day wrote it brilliantly, this cultural fixation of growth and novelty and reinvention, and we just have to like more, new, new, new. And
Did
this,
you see that I posted about that?
yeah, I've had my notes, I wrote my notes, and then I saw your newsletter, and I'm like, damn, no, okay, weird.
This is
So
this is why she is goals for me because
yeah.
I think people some people, not everyone, but I think for some of us, we're getting to a point where we realize our obsession with endless growth on a finite planet isn't healthy for anyone. It's not healthy for us, it's not healthy for the planet. And so I like to ask people, like, what is it that you really want out of life? Like, what is enough for you? And once I realized that, it really helped me change my relationship with a lot of things. It also
Mhm.
helped me with my platform, where, I started to have a platform back in like 2018. And I remember being like, yeah, you know what? I can't sell things on this platform. I can't work with a lot of the big, um, you know, a lot of the big
Mhm.
like corporations that are sponsoring people in online spaces. I can't do this because they are the problem. And
Mhm.
so it helped me to come up with a message that was true to myself, but also one that had integrity behind it, because I knew that for me, the goal is never to make millions of dollars a year because I actually don't need that sort of money to have a happy life. And I think for someone like Sally Rooney, she has reached like such a level of success in her writing that she can really pull back in other areas and be like, do I need to do this? No. Will it make my life happier if I do this?
She
And I
can go
think
all
that
Marie
that's,
Kondo and be like, does this spark joy? No, it does
yes,
not.
yes. And like, I think that's true freedom, to get to a point where you don't have to do certain things because you know that like it won't bring you the things that you need, right? There's a certain level of money in our society where there's like this study done. I can't remember if it was like Princeton or Yale, but it was like years ago. And basically they studied people at different levels of income. And what they found was that at a certain point, the happiness levels really plateau. And the income that they found was the amount that you needed in most states in the United States to live a life where your needs were cared for. So, where you could afford to maybe buy property, where you could afford healthcare, where you could take a few nice holidays, where you could treat people to nice things. And then after that, the level of happiness, whether you were making, $150,000 a year
Mhm.
or $150 million a year, plateaued.
Yeah. Diminishing marginal utility. 100%. But it's interesting, like you brought this up, right? We buy to also kind of like feel have this need. Like we feel like we when we achieve and we have more money, it means something, or it confirms the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. And like how we so
We also buy to fit in.
oh
Like,
god,
one
yeah,
of
we
the
have this
things I
urge to
talk
belong.
about,
It's very human.
yeah. One of the things I talked about in Consumed was how, like, when I was in my like early, like late teens, early 20s, I read a magazine article where I learned about the Birkin bag. And this was even before it was like on Sex and the City. And like this, they had asked this like businesswoman like what her most expensive purchase was. And she said, oh, the Birkin bag, I was on the wait list for 3 years. Da, 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 da. It's extremely rare, blah, blah. And I remember being like, that's what I need. I need that. And then when I go into the business world, people will take me seriously. And so, like, I had a whole plan in my head that I would save like throughout university. I would put myself on the wait list and then I would save and save and save. And by the time I got my first job, hopefully I would have the money saved to get a Birkin bag. And like, in retrospect, I think Birkins are really ugly. Like, I never questioned whether
Oh
I
yeah,
liked the bag. It was
yeah.
all about how I thought the world would treat me and see me if I had the
Mm-hmm.
bag. I like a lot of other things that Hermes makes. I think that a lot of their products are really, really beautiful. And the people that work in Hermes stores, I find are usually pretty cool. Like, it's funny because they have a reputation for like being really like snotty, but I think that if you're a nice person, people in stores are always generally pretty nice. Like, it's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
rarity when I experience like store snobbery. But that bag is not for me. It was about the status behind the bag. And I think
mhm.
if we're really honest with ourselves, I think that's what's behind a lot of our purchases.
Oh, 100%. And we're also being tricked into how our need to belong is exploited, right? In very different ways of branding, status symbols like a Birkin or lifestyle marketing and all these things. And we have to untangle this. I feel for getting to the root of thing, we have to unravel this web of, hey, what is like my identity and what it's really
What do I
about.
actually like? What
Yeah,
actually makes me happy?
yeah.
What do I actually need to be happy? For me, I think my needs are actually pretty like simple. I want to get to a point where I can really produce creatively in a way where I'm not trying to please. Like, I feel like to get to that point, you have to sort of be like independently wealthy in our society. And it's not that I really want like wealth, but would it be nice to not have to worry about like how do I pay a rent or a mortgage? Yeah, that would be really good. Do I have to take this job that doesn't necessarily align with what I want to do because I'm paying for these things, and it would be nice to be able to help my loved ones out. And so that's really my only goal for working. It's not because I want to fly in private jets. God, no. It's because I want to have a comfortable, nice life where I can help loved ones and be generous with people around me. That's my goals. I don't even have to take like exotic holidays. Like I'm really lucky. I live in London. I can get to some pretty cool places by train,
Yeah.
so I think that I already have a really good life, but I would like to achieve a level of security where it changes my relationship with work. That's the goal for me. And
Mhm.
once I understood that, this idea of like making millions and millions and millions of dollars is not actually appealing to me at all, because I don't think that you need millions upon millions of dollars to live the life that I want. And I think if more people ask themselves what it is that they truly want, they'll get to that point as well. Like, I don't even have a car, and I'm really
Mm.
happy about that. I'm lucky. I live in London. I don't need one.
Yeah.
And like, we will continue that way until, maybe we might need one. Say we like have a kid and like I'm older. So like the chances of having multiple babies at once, especially because I have a parent who's a twin, is pretty high. So like, would I get a car if I had like multiple little ones? Possibly, because they walk slow. But if nothing about my lifestyle changes, I expect to be car free for the rest of my life.
Mm. But that whole thing of asking yourself what you truly want and need. I just recently saw a TikTok from Alok Weaponised who said it beautifully. They said to figure out what, like, who you are, you have to heal. And in order to heal, you have to hurt. And you have to, like, be willing to, and to be courageous to break your heart, right? You have to ask yourself questions of the concept of self and who you are and what you're meant to be in this world and what you're meant to do. And how was it for you? How can we bring up like the necessary courage to ask these questions? Because the path there is, or can be, was in my case, very painful.
I think you have to be really introspective and brutally honest about like where you're at. Like when it comes to need versus want, we can justify any BS in our society.
Mm.
And like it isn't just us justifying it to ourselves, it is literally the messaging and the marketing, particularly surrounding consumerism and materialism. You open a magazine and it's going to be like, fall things you need to buy right now. And it's like, things that you probably already own, like a pair of, you know, slouchy jeans or a denim overshirt. Like, let me tell you, I have been on this planet for over 4 decades now. Let me tell you, I have been on this planet for over 4 decades now, and the denim shirts have not changed. The same denim shirt that I bought in probably 2004 from like the charity shop is pretty much the exact same denim shirt that's being sold today. But the media would lead you to believe that you need to buy a new one every single year. And then you start to get into it. I remember specific time periods when I was younger, when I would be like, oh, well, I really need a new pair of boots this winter. No, I didn't. The boots that I had were actually fine. I did not need a new pair of boots. I wanted a new pair of boots because there were different styles that were being pushed that I wanted to engage in, but I did not need. And I think the language that we use, particularly surrounding like consumerism and materialism, is so tricky. And I really try and pinpoint that to people. And there's a level of honesty that has to happen. Like when we talk about fast fashion, for instance, people love to go into this whole conversation about the poor people who are buying all the fast fashion. And I'm like,
The ones who do the Shane hauls and
are
yeah.
are we being honest about this? Because like I have poverty in my family on both sides, and I have never seen any person I know who exists on or around the poverty line doing a haul from Shein. Funny
Mm.
enough, and Shein as a company would not be profitable without that haul culture.
Mm.
So, like, is it really poor people who are keeping these systems afloat, or are we kind of full of nonsense about this and not
Mm.
really being honest with ourselves about, like, who made this mess? Who bought all these clothes? You know what I mean? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what corporations do as well. Like, they say that they're responding to consumer demand when they push 51 seasons of clothing a year. And it's like, is it consumer demand or is it demand that you've created?
And need to sustain your,
And need to sustain your bottom line, which keeps your investors happy.
yeah. So how do we then like start taking consumerism away from our personal and cultural identities? Like to really be honest of, hey, look, I don't need this and I just buy this because I want to like belong
Mhm.
to the social group, or I want to be seen as fashionable, stylish, whatever. Um and
It's a
then
bit of
like
brutal honesty,
mm,
which we all have to sort of engage with. And that it's also like checking in with yourself in so many different ways. First of all, look at who you're following on social media. Like, when we talk about, how we're convinced to spend our money in certain ways, we really don't look too hard at like the little like things that happen socially that push us in that direction. And social media is something that we all engage with and kind of have to now because we've created this world where everyone has to brand and sell themselves and it's such a hellscape. But regardless, you have to be on, if you're doing any sort of like creative work or even like freelance work, you have to be on social media. But who are you following?
mm,
Like, we talk a lot about things like, parasocial relationships and whatnot, which wasn't something that we needed to really discuss before. But then, the internet changed a lot of how we live. And I think sometimes people need to investigate like who they're engaging with on social media and why. Does that person that you follow, do they actually really care about their readership or do they really care about selling you things? Is this their job? Because I think, and I've had this before too, there have been people that I've followed in the past where like I've been like, oh, but I really like them. And then I realized they were not doing anything of use to anyone else on their profile. So why do I really like them? What element do I really like about them? Do I like their life? Do I like their style? You can get that from other places without being pushed to buy things that you may or may not need, you know?
mm-hmm,
And so I think we have to investigate who we're following on social media, how we're engaging with social media, but we also have to investigate ourselves. Like, one of the things that I do, I track every clothing purchase that I make and I put it on a spreadsheet. And I aim to be under a certain amount of items because the average consumer, and this is like an old stat from like 2018 or something, buys like 68 items of clothing a year in the United States. And so
wow.
I don't want to be anywhere near that number. First of all, I don't even buy as much new clothing as I used to buy. I used to purchase a lot of new clothing. And now I would say, no, my cat's trying to jump up on my desk. You can't be here. You can't be here. Sorry.
That's good.
Sorry.
That's
It's
good.
the one that ruined the chair.
Oh, naughty one.
Oh, she's so naughty. I have to hold on to my laptop, otherwise she'll like push it off the desk because she's just trying to make room for herself. She's
Well, you're not giving that
like
full attention to her,
it's
so
like
of
living
course.
with a teenager, honestly. So she's really annoyed because she can't get like, oh, see, she's pushing my laptop. Stop
Oh God, it's a glimpse into my
it.
future. I just told Aja that we're getting two kittens next week, so I'm like, okay, I need to kitten proof my
She's
work situation.
honestly, like this cat is like, she's just her own little person, you know?
Yeah, I really love the
So,
Instagram stories about all.
so we need to, not just self-investigate, but investigate the world around us, investigate who you're following on social media and what they're, what do they encourage you to do? What do they inspire you to do? Do they inspire you to change the world and make it more positive? Or do they inspire you to buy the things that they buy because they get a cut of it? And ask yourself, like, do I actually really, what am I getting from following this account? What am I experiencing? Is this good for me? Is it good for the planet? And then you have to self-investigate. Like for me, I now track every clothing item I buy, and it really tells me a lot about myself. And it's good because I don't want to be just endlessly buying. I think that's what I used to do in the past. And it was always a rude awakening when I realized what percentage of my money I had given to fast fashion corporations at the end of the year. And so now I track all my purchases. I actually buy the majority of my clothing secondhand to begin with. I don't buy as much new stuff as I used to, but I also put it all in a spreadsheet. And that's great because it reminds you what you already have. And it
I
also
like
like
this.
it keeps you honest about like what you're spending. Sometimes I even mark how much I've worn an item because that also gives you insight into like what you might not need to buy again. And so there's so many ways to sort of really change how you're engaging with certain systems in our society, but it takes a little bit of willpower and it takes wanting to change and wanting to do things differently.
Yeah, I remember some of the glorious things about getting older is I definitely realize I give less fucks. So
Mhm.
if clothing now is not comfortable, I'm like, bye. Like, no. Um,
Yeah, I used to have a lot of heels and I never needed that amount of heels ever. I hardly wear heels now. Like I try and make an effort to wear them, but it's just not my go-to, you know?
yeah.
There's a few pairs that I still wear, but there are a lot of pairs that I just need to like say bye-bye to.
Yeah. And I also had clothing of for the person I thought I would be someday. And I'm
Like what? Tell me.
yeah, like a really it was kind of a cool piece, but I got it because I thought it would make me like look, I don't know, more boss, more cool, more edgy.
What was it?
It was a wool cardigan open with
Mm-hmm.
leather sleeves.
Oh, so like 2008, 2009 era helmet Lang sort of stuff,
Yeah.
which was also very much inspired by Rick Owens. I actually have some Rick Owens pieces that I still really love. But I work in the fashion industry and sometimes I go to fashion events and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I get it. I think we do buy those things. My cat is literally trying to push my laptop off my desk. She's really trying. She's like, I'm fighting with my cat over here to keep this laptop from like moving forward because she's trying to get comfortable. So rude.
But yeah, I had to
So
realize it's not me.
yeah, did you sell it?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
sold it.
good. Yeah,
And I
if
hope
it's
someone
not for
else is
you.
happy now with it. Because it was
And
a lovely
sometimes we
piece.
can, yeah, and sometimes we can totally like experiment with our style and realize that something isn't right for us, but that doesn't mean that we were bad for trying, you know? But as you start to really get to know like who you are and what it is that you like, you really start to sort of understand what definitely works for you and what doesn't. And
Yeah.
that's a great place to be.
Mm. And I remember another big learning was that was more of a painful one because it brought up a lot of other things is that I that it's just not a very sustainable idea to regulate yourself, your emotions through shopping. Who knew?
Yes. Yeah. But
But
society tells us it is.
oh
Like, they
God,
say
yeah.
things like retail therapy, you know.
Yeah. But at the bottom of this was like that I didn't know. I at the time I did the best I could regulating myself through buying things
Hmm.
because I haven't been mirrored or taught an other way to regulate. So it also brought up a lot of shit about my past, about when I was a
Hmm.
kid. And like, so it's not, I get when people are like, you need a bit courage to actually do this kind of work because it can be hard.
It's a lot of unpacking, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I think even like when we think about like what makes us certain types of consumers, I really had to unpack like my childhood and the parts of my childhood that I didn't like and go back into the root of that to sort of realize why I was where I was at with like constantly buying. Like, I got made fun of for not having the right clothing when I was in school, and that just made me so ripe for the taking when it came to fast fashion. As soon as I had disposable income in my hot little hands from like babysitting and cat sitting and doing all sorts
Mm.
of like odd jobs, I was just like off to the mall. And the reason why was because I wanted to buy clothing so that I would be treated nicer by my classmates. And when I think about like how that sent me off in a place of feeling like maybe if I have a Birkin bag, the world will treat me in a certain way, you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of see where the root of these things start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's brutal at some points. Like I had memories coming up from my childhood. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I thought I went to therapy for this. Apparently not.
It's also like in our society, like every single movie that is aimed at, you know, women and girls of a certain age is a movie that has a makeover scene where you have an underdog who
Yeah.
is treated badly,
Yeah.
and then they get a haircut and new clothes, and then everybody treats them differently. That's like
Yeah.
a pretty like generic trope in like any rom-com movie. And so that's the ways in which these ideas are quite like, you know, embedded in our society. And once you start to see it, you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you have to do that inner work is part of the change, right? Because then we can like go bottom up, but we also need to look at the top down at this the systematic structures of things and how we can go about changing that. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm sometimes not sure how, if we look at consumerism capitalism as a system, I'm sometimes really not sure how we can go about this without like
Mhm.
burning ourselves out on an individual level.
Yeah. So this is why we absolutely need regulation, and why like I think that it's really important to get involved. Like, you might have seen that I shared in my newsletter that there's currently a campaign by the Orr Foundation called Speak Volumes, where you can nominate your big corporation that really gets on your nerves to open up about the amount of clothing that they're making. One of the reasons why we struggle with regulation is because we really don't have an idea for the numbers. Like, when people talk about regulating the fashion industry, there is this whole idea that across the board, everyone needs to do this, everyone needs to do that. And like, yeah, there are certain things that apply to every fashion brand, but the brands that are doing the most polluting and the most overproduction and the most damage because they have a carbon footprint the size of a, you know, cruise ship are the ones who really need to do the most, right? But
Mm-hmm.
people don't really understand that. And so I think people tend to sort of push like sustainable and ethical brands to constantly be better and better and better, instead of looking at like Nike and H&M and like, you know, Adidas and saying, actually, you're bigger than all of these companies. You actually hold the burden of doing the most here, you know? And so Speaks Volumes is about getting um different corporations to open up about the volumes of clothing that they're producing every year, which will ultimately end up in places in the global south, like Ghana, for instance, where the Ore Foundation is based, or Kenya or Uganda, loads of places where our clothing ends up, it actually pollutes the local environment and makes things really unlivable for the people who live there. And so Speaks Volumes is about challenging clothing manufacturers to talk about the amount of clothing that they produce so that we can understand who has the burden of cleaning up the mess.
I'm curious, you brought up an interesting point, right? That I came across online too, that we seem to have like different rulers, one for big corporations, the ones you mentioned, and another ruler for smaller businesses who try really fucking hard to already have a
Yes.
sustainable
Yeah.
chain and clothing. Like, why do you think, what is your explanation on why we are
Because
having different rulers?
people feel like with corporations that they're like shouting into the void. And I get it. But guess what? If you have 100 people shouting at a corporation and you have like 100 people send a letter to a CEO, guess what happens? In a lot of cases, that whatever they're being shouted about on social media or through letters or whatever, that actually gets discussed in board meetings and boardrooms. So people feel like, I'm just a little person. What can I do if I tell, you know, H&M that they have to stop producing so much stuff? Well, yeah, on an individual level, it probably does feel like you're really just throwing everything at the wall and it's not sticking. But what if you got 20 of your friends to do the same thing? Would you still feel so powerless? I think the reason people hold a yardstick to smaller brands is because they feel like they're more accessible. Like when a person who runs a small
There's
business
better
puts
opportunity.
themselves out there, it's almost like we're like, let's get them instead of the billionaire who's sitting in the boardroom with all of his investors laughing like Dr. Evil. You know, it's like,
Or the
oh, look,
Starbucks chef flying using his private jet to go
yes,
to work every fucking day. I'm like, are you
exactly.
serious? Are you
Exactly.
serious? Yeah.
Yes, let's, talk about an individual who's going on their first holiday of the year saying you really shouldn't be flying. Meanwhile, the Starbucks CEO is flying up every single week for, his little like commute because he's not moving.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times
Sure.
we really
One
chase our
stand to say.
tails. We chase our tails because we feel like the real work is too hard to do. And like, it's not true. We just need the numbers. That's really it. Like, one of the things that I learned in my book is that the consumer citizen voice has a lot of power. And like, one of the people that I interviewed for my book was basically saying that like they've been on the ground in like protests for like garment workers in like parts of Asia, where if the consumer voice gets involved in what the garment workers are protesting, they will see a change from that corporation. If people say, I'm not going to buy this stuff, like, you're not paying people, that's unfair. And right here on your corporate responsibility page, you say that like you believe in this and that. If we had 100, 200 people who put that amount of pressure on different corporations via social media, we could get change. It really doesn't take that many people. It just takes a little bit of dedication, but it's the organizing part where people are just like, well, I can't really change them. It's just too big. And it's like, then why are you asking this small business over here if their clothing tags are made from recycled paper?
So yeah, and I mean we see that. I mean, just recently it was Starbucks, right, who almost admitted that they're not doing so well because a lot of people said, you know what, we're just not going to fund genocide. Thank you very much. Off you go.
I haven't had Starbucks in over a year, and I do not miss their crappy
Oh God, me
overpriced
neither.
coffee.
I'm
I'm never going back.
no, no, never fucking ever. But
I think it's easy for me to say that living in London. I get it. You're in like maybe a rural place and like you've only got Starbucks. I kind of understand to a certain extent, but even then I would just dig in. It's like in lockdown, I got really good at making my coffee drinks at home because I didn't really have an alternative. And it turns out you actually save a lot of money that way as well.
Yeah. But still, I feel inclined to say the whole shit about like, don't buy the latte. That's why you're not able to afford a house. That's
Yeah,
the case.
exactly.
I'm like, I have to say
You know
this
what?
because
You 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 just bought too many avocado toast and lattes, and
oh
that's why
god,
you can't
yes,
have a
yes,
house
I'm
in New
one of
York
those
City.
millennials, or like, yeah, one of those guilty as charged.
Someone said I skipped my avocado toast and lattes for 5 years, and I managed to save $20,000, and that's still not enough for a home deposit. So you might as well just enjoy your
Yeah.
coffee in peace.
Yeah. Well, not in London where you live, and not in Zurich where I live. So there you go.
Yeah, but I also think like I don't actually miss these things as much as I think I will. Like I don't buy a lot of the things I used to buy because it's not good for the planet. But what I've also found is like maybe I didn't even enjoy that lifestyle. Like, did I enjoy buying over 100 items of clothing a year
The
that
first five
wouldn't look so
seconds with the
good?
dopamine hit, sure.
Yeah, but like there were time periods I remember like getting home after shopping at H&M and feeling disgusted with myself. Like sitting in my car being like, what have I done? And like I think we need to lean into that feeling more than leaning into like, but I'm gonna look really good and I won't wear the same thing twice. Like lean into the feeling of horror that you sometimes have when you like open your closet and realize that like you hate a lot of the clothing in the closet and it's not actually as good as you thought it was. Um, but I don't miss a
Validation
lot of
cannot be bought by external things.
exactly. And I just don't miss a lot of the things I used to do. Like if I have a coffee out now, I tend to like have it there instead of getting it to go because it's nice to like sit down with a friend and have a really nice coffee drink. Like that's what I actually like. I didn't want to race around with like Starbucks in my hand, you know?
Yeah,
And
same.
so like even if I go out for a coffee now, I'm going to go to an independent coffee shop, which I'm lucky I have an abundance of those where I live, and I'm going to actually enjoy my coffee instead of being like, zoom, zoom, gotta go,
Yeah,
you
like
know?
grown ass toddler with a sippy cup.
Exactly, exactly. Um, and so I think I actually enjoy life now because it's a slower pace of life and way more intentional. And I also save a lot more money. Like I just
Win-win.
this is a I think you know, you probably saw like this week I was sharing all of my secondhand, my most expensive secondhand purchases this year, because that is basically how I go to shop. And my clothing in my closet is 20 times better than it was before. And I genuinely do spend less money, which is quite sad because that just meant that I was just buying a lot of crap. Like, and that's the thing when you slow down and when you stop being the person who buys 68 plus garments a year, you have more time. Like people will say like, "Oh, well, you know, I don't know where to shop. Like it's not my fault that I just don't know." And it's like, but you could actually take the time. Like if you can go to H&M's
Like,
website
let me Google
and
this
look
for
at
you.
and look at the 20,000 items that they have listed, then I think that maybe you could actually just Google ethical slow fashion brands, you know, and see what comes up. You
Well, we
can
have even
literally
Google
do that.
image search now. So you can take a photo of something and then let it through Google image search if you want, for sustainable
You
options. Like, I mean,
you can absolutely, I mean, you can use G whatever.
yeah.
I don't really use a lot of like the AI stuff, but you can use that to tell you about like ethical brands. There's just so many different ways to do it. And I think people need to like either own up to like the idea that they're sort of engaging in what's it called when like a guy pretends like he can't do a certain task. There's a word for it. It's not coming to me. It's when the guy's like, "Oh, I don't know how to do this," but really they're just used to
Okay.
like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
woman in their life doing that type of labor.
Yeah.
There's a phrase for it,
Oh,
and
there
it's
is,
like on the
yes,
tip
but
of,
it's also
you know what
eluding me right
you know
now.
what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about,
yeah, yeah.
right?
I
It's
know,
like
but it's also eluding me right
pretending
now.
like you can't do something because you don't want to do it or because you're waiting for someone else to do it. And I think that we practice that a lot in the fast fashion conversation. Well, I just don't know where to shop. Oh my God. And you just can't figure it out through the internet that you're chatting to me on, you know?
Yeah. Is it really that
I'm
you're
are
absolutely
people,
helpless with social media, or you just, I don't
yeah,
know. It's just a
people love to
dumbass
say
excuse.
like, oh, well, I can't shop secondhand because I'm plus size. And I'm like, hello, I'm plus size, and
Yeah.
and
Like join the club.
like, oh, well, I can't shop in charity shops because they don't have my size. No shit. They don't have my size either. I don't buy the majority of my clothing in charity shops. I buy it on eBay or Vestiaire or The Real Real. I might find something twice a year in a charity shop that fits me
Yeah.
if I'm lucky.
Same.
So, like, yeah, the majority of us aren't actually finding that much in charity shops, mainly because they're flooded with Shein at the minute, And so I just think that people love to sort of like fake incompetence when it comes to like changing how they engage with this because they don't want to really change. It's work, it's labor,
Change
it's
is
doing things
uncomfortable. It's
differently. It's uncomfortable, but like please spare me the like, you know, faked
yeah.
incompetence going on here because like people that want to like internet sleuth can become detectives overnight, but people can't figure out how to find a brand that like makes clothing and pays their workers. Are you kidding me?
Or if you
Weaponized incompetence. That's the
Oh yeah,
phrase.
that's the one. Yes. Weaponized
That's the
incompetence.
phrase I was
That's the
looking
phrase.
for.
Yes.
Weaponized incompetence. So yes, I think
Beautiful.
when it comes to the conversation about changing how you engage with these systems, people love a bit of weaponized incompetence. They love to be like, I don't know where to shop. These stores don't carry my size. And like, as a fat person, I will say, like, yes, it is legitimate that, like, stores do not try and like include fat people. I'm really working very hard to change that on the ethical fashion landscape, right? But there are brands out there that really do try and make everyone's size, and people almost don't even want to look for them, or they want to give them a really hard time.
Yeah.
It's just like, once again, instead of punching up, let's just punch around at what's within our reach. And it's not helpful. It's just not
Mm.
helpful at all. And like, I when I talk about being honest, it's also time to be honest about actions like that. Are we punching up or are we punching at our neighbor,
Yeah. It's always easier to punch neighbors or punch down, or even worse.
Yeah, punch down, punch around, whatever you do, don't punch up.
No, God, no. That would be an interruption to the system. We do not want this. No, God
The
forbid.
weaponized incompetence surrounding this topic really does get me, though. Like, people can find anything on the internet. They can illegally download movies, films. They can like sleuth out what their favorite influencer is wearing if they haven't tagged the brand, but they're like, I just can't find any ethical brands. Nah, I call bullshit on everyone for that one. Like,
Mm.
do you not want to search for them? Can you not find them? Are you unwilling to look?
Yeah,
Or are
there's a
you even
difference.
like unwilling to like sign up to like someone like me's Patreon
I,
where I
I wanted to
share
say
brands?
we have to kind of like really segue into your Patreon, because this is like the perfect build up.
Well, this is the thing. And I also think that it comes down again to like this conversation that I keep having in our society where we devalue everyone's labor. We devalue the labor of garment workers, and that's why we think that shirts should cost $5. We devalue the labor of artists and graphic designers, and that's why we're like, I don't see a problem with like AI ripping them off. I don't want to pay someone, $200 to like do this illustration for me. We devalue the labor of so many of the creative industries, and then we wonder why everything is so shit. And
Yeah.
so like when it comes to like even things like I want to find new places to shop, people are just like, well, why won't you tell me for free? And I'm like, because that's what I do for pay. And they're like, but you should tell me for free. And I'm like, this is the problem. You devalue everyone's labor.
Mhm.
Like, what I like to do on my Patreon is I really want to show people who subscribe to my work how to do it in the way that I do it when it comes to rethinking how you engage with the system and also changing the way you shop. And so this is why I do like roundups of my favorite online secondhand finds, you know. This is why I am constantly sharing the brands that I buy and how I organize my wardrobe and how I decide what I'm going to wear, because I hope to inspire other people. And I've been sort of thinking about this and shopping this way for over 20 years now. You know, I first started buying items of clothing on eBay when I was like in university. This is like early 2000s. And I just remember everyone thinking I was being really weird. Like, what do you mean you're buying your shoes on eBay? You know?
Yeah.
By the way, I feel compelled to send you a picture of what is going on behind my computer since I have mentioned my rude teenager of a cat. So hold on, I'm going to show it. I'm going to,
I'm curious what's coming up now.
I've just got like legs hanging out from, let's see if you, can you see that image?
I love it. I love it. She looks comfortable though.
Well, yeah, but she's annoying because
Yeah.
she's just
Well,
like,
that's cats for you. Like
she basically
cute and
gets on
annoying.
my desk and then she takes her foot and she just tries to push the laptop gently off
Like
the
yeah, yeah, but
desk.
she
And
does it very like smooth and like
Mhm,
so
very
you
subtly.
don't
My
see.
my sister-in-law used to have a dog that would do that to people if they sat on the sofa. She would get behind you and then she would just use her hind legs to just push you gently off the sofa. And Steve's dad was like, yeah, one time I found myself on the floor and I was like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I like our old cat, rest in peace, she got 21.
Wow,
I
that's a good
know.
old age for a
Yeah, it
cat.
was. It was. But she was that bitch, right? Like when she would see that you like one time I saw her getting out of her cat litter box, and then she realized, oh, human looking at me, and she had like cat litter between her like paws. She would really
Stuck in
really
her
be like,
toes, yeah.
yeah, she would be really look at me and be like, so the cat litter was all
Yep,
over the
right on
floor,
the
and I'm
floor.
like, okay, message received.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I know
Yeah,
now
rude.
where I stand in this relationship.
Incredibly rude. I love when like they look at you and do something that you've like told them not to do. Like cats know their names. They're just not listening. Like Olive knows her name
They know right
totally.
from wrong.
I just saw her ears perk up, but the amount of times I'll call her and she'll just like pretend like she has no idea what I'm talking about. Yes, you do know your name, don't you? Yeah, you know your name. You're just ignoring me. I've seen that meme that says like, if cats could call you back, they wouldn't.
Which is so true. Yeah, look, they would like no, they would not. It's very feline behavior of not coming back. But I want to circle back one more time before we wrap up.
Hmm.
You mentioned before like we kind of like sometimes really suck at bringing people together and kind of like
Hmm.
organizing, and that brings me to the question of, well, how can we, and by we I mean white Western women, how can we do better at like coming together and actually be like, this system, it's gonna kill us. We might be higher up the chain and it will kill us later, but it will
Hmm.
kill us eventually. Like,
Hmm.
how can we just fucking do
The
better?
most effective thing that all of us can do is stop buying so much shit and stop supporting corporations that we know are treating people
Yeah.
badly. That's like
Mm-hmm.
the most effective thing. Like, if you have to buy some underpants from a store that you know is in the news for not paying their garment workers, I'm not going to show up and slap your credit card out of your hand, right? Like, people get really defensive with my message as if I'm going to like show up at their house and berate them, which is ridiculous. But again, like the internet makes people pretty parasocial. So, okay, you've got to get your pants from Primark. Would I shop at Primark? No. I've got enough clothing, so I don't even need to be shopping for anything new. But for someone who does, I'm not saying that you're a bad person because that's the only person that makes underpants in your size. What I am saying is you probably don't need to buy 3 dresses while you're there because you already have dresses in your closet that fit and are great and are wonderful. Hey, it's summertime. Do you actually really need a whole new wardrobe to go on holiday? Does it feel good to buy new things? Absolutely. That's why we do it. But do you actually need new things? Be honest with yourself. If all of us just stopped buying so much, like if all of us bought, if every consumer bought like one item secondhand in a calendar year, the impact would be felt like overnight. Seriously. Now
Wow.
imagine if every person who buys clothing didn't just buy one item, but bought multiple secondhand items a year. What would that look like? So, like, I always tell people if you have a stigma about secondhand, you really, really need to get over it. Now, that's not the only solution. We obviously need to regulate these industries, but like, I will never buy a new pair of jeans because I know that I like a certain type of Levi, and I also know that Levi overproduces, so I don't need to buy them new because if I type my size in to eBay right now, I will get over 100 pairs that people are selling. So I have not bought new jeans in probably 6, 7 years.
Mm.
Not, and I don't need to. So let's be realistic about the things that we can change, right? And say you do really like buying things from a brand that I wouldn't say falls under an ethical umbrella, like Arquette, which is owned by H&M. Can you buy it secondhand? Because I guarantee you can buy pretty much everything they ever make secondhand because they don't make just one of it. They make thousands. And this is why we need to understand how much is being made so we can understand how much responsibility falls on H&M to clean up their corner of the world and how much responsibility falls on Zara and Nike and Urban Outfitters and Anthropology and Free People. This is why these campaigns are important. But on an individual scale, stop giving these corporations your money just like that. They haven't earned your money. They aren't earning your money. You're falling into a trap of thinking that the world will treat you differently if you buy all the new things from Anthropology. And I assure you, some people, superficial people, might, but that's not actually what you want. You want something deeper and more beautiful than that.
Mm. It's going back to really thinking, okay, what is our true sense of belonging, and remove the artificial parts away from it, right? And to really be like, hey, how can I find a safety or a formation of identity or emotional support or resources or purpose in another way
Yeah.
than thinking, oh, this anthropology shirt is gonna get me in with the right crowd.
You know what else happens when you stop buying so much crap? You buy and read more books. I think that we are going through like an ignorance epidemic in our society. I really do. I
Yeah,
think that
100%.
people are not reading anymore. And like, I'm not saying reading in the ableist way of, oh, well, you have to read paper books. No, if you like listen to like informed opinions from experts on a podcast, I think that that really counts. I think listening to an audiobook counts. But we're
100%.
getting our information from infographics and like this is not helping us. And like I say that as someone with a platform who will do an infographic, you know, you need to do more than the infographic because the reason I can make that infographic is because I read the book. I'm
Mm.
distilling some of what I've read in the book into an infographic to get people interested, but the work doesn't stop there. I want you to read the book as well. I want you to come away from, you know, whatever conversation with an understanding that your work isn't just reading an Instagram post, dig deeper, you
Mm.
know? And that's one thing that has definitely happened. When you stop with the consumerism, you start being like, oh, wow, I actually need to read this pile of books by my bed. And I think that if we all went back to being, you know, a society who actually reads, I think that would infinitely change the game on this planet.
Yeah. because we would also then just demand better for ourselves, better things,
And
better
we would be
services,
better
better
educated
education.
about,
Yeah.
we'd be better educated about like what we actually need to like survive and make this planet, you know, habitable for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Less misinformation.
Yeah, not going back to like before, like, yeah, going back to the Middle Ages or something where we
Yeah,
like
exactly.
where we
Where
demonize
people are
science
dying
and
from preventable illness
yeah,
because,
like
you
no.
know, they saw an Instagrammer who said that like drinking a certain type of tea cured them, you know?
It gave you the shits, that's what it is. But hey, yeah, sure. You lost a few pounds on the process.
Exactly.
Oh God. Like, Aja,
It
thank you
really
so
does annoy me how much people get away with, because like if I wanted to like sell out and just sell people just garbage, I would be so rich.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to be rich, but it would be really nice to be able to like write my parents a check and like help them out. It'd be really nice to help out my sister who's a single mom. That is the type of like money that
Yeah.
I want, so that they
Or
can have
like
an
I would
easier
like to
life.
support my favorite charities better. Of like,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. I would love to become a board member of more charities by like giving them money. I would love to give money to like garment worker unions, which is what I did when I wrote Consumed. I gave 15% of my advance to a few organizations like Asia Floor Wage Alliance and the Orr Foundation, who I've talked about their campaign on this podcast.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I would love to do more good things with my money and be more generous with my loved ones. And, you know, if I were a person who was like, yeah, I'll sell that garbage, I would, particularly like around the time period of 2020 and 2021, I probably could have made enough money to like pay off a house in London and then some, like realistically speaking,
Mm-hmm.
if I were willing to sell my soul to
Yeah.
corporations. And so it's very annoying to see people who make so much money from selling people garbage
Yeah.
be able to get away with it. And I really think that we all need to sort of like not just break free of these bad systems of listening to people who don't have anyone's interest at heart except for their own. But I think that in doing so, we can free ourselves and get to a place where we're working on healing ourselves.
Yeah. And that's really where we start, right? We have to start by healing ourselves and doing the courageous, often really unpleasant work, and then we can like go outward and heal more and heal more. But it has to start with
Totally.
us. Mm.
Absolutely.
I always have one last question for anyone on
Mm-hmm.
the podcast, but I have two more for you because I'm really curious. What is your definition, or for you, what is the difference between style and fashion?
Uh, that's a good question. Style is something that cannot be bought, and fashion is something that can be purchased. There are people that have the most incredible style that will never shop at the stores that everyone's shopping at, but they have it. They know how to put things together. They know how to wear clothing. They have confidence. They have charisma. They have riz, as the kids say.
Oh
They
God, yeah, the
have
youngsters say Riz.
yeah, as the kids say. Style can't be purchased. It can't. You can work with someone who can help you sort of understand your style, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to you, where fashion can be bought.
Hmm. Could style then be a byproduct of doing the work on yourself,
Yeah.
understanding yourself and
Abs
values and better, and then
Yes, absolutely.
hmm.
I think that when you go through that unpacking process and you ask yourself what it is that you really truly like, you're gonna start to really understand it. I mean,
Hmm.
I always tell people like I play around on Pinterest for like 10 minutes every day. And I was like a really early user of Pinterest. I was like a beta user. And
Same. Back in the day.
it was actually my first platform, but like you didn't get anything out of it. It just had a lot of followers. But I remember I had a really boring like job at one point where I was like temping, and I would finish all my work and then I would be sitting there waiting for more work. So I would just like pop onto Pinterest, and then I would just pin things. And I found that I got the same dopamine kick as like buying things. But after a year of doing that, I was able to look through all of my boards and see very clearly what my eye was drawn to, what I found interesting. And it was almost like seeing my my inspirations in front of me, but it happened in a way that was completely like unconscious.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Then it just kind of like comes together and you see the mosaic and the puzzle and you're like, woo, I
This is why
like
I'm
it.
always telling like people on Patreon, I'm like, please get on Pinterest. Like, you don't have to spend any money. You can get the same dopamine kick of like looking at lots of clothing and like deciding what it is that you like. And, you know, if there's something that you really, really want and you keep coming back to it, Pinterest is a great way to track it down. A few
Mm-hmm.
years ago, after the pandemic, I was like probably about like 10, 15 pounds heavier than I am today, which, you know, life ebbs and flows. Bodies are meant to change. Anyways, I need a bigger coat because none of my coats fit me like the way I wanted them to fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on Pinterest and I looked at this coat that I had pinned like years ago. And then I went down the rabbit hole of finding out who made the coat. And then I typed the coat into eBay. One came up on my size, new with tags.
I
New with
love
tags,
it.
on sale, down from $300 to $100. And I was like, done.
Yeah, sold. Like not even thinking about it twice.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
that's the
So
beauty of oh, that reminds me. I when I was like 20 or something maybe, I desperately wanted like those. They were very popular. I'm sure you probably remember those, like the Charlotte Olympia like velvet kitty ballet slippers. They were black and they had like an embroidered kitty face on them and like little
yeah,
ears.
yeah, yeah. I think I remember them. Yeah.
And I always wanted them. They were like just so fucking expensive. I'm like, nah, not gonna happen. And then during the pandemic, one of those doomed pandemic nights nursing a baby, I saw them on eBay, my size, for like 60 or $70. And I'm like,
Did you get them?
cart immediately. I was
Yes.
waiting like 15
Yes.
years for this shoe.
Oh yeah, I see them right now.
Yeah.
Were they flats?
Yeah, the flat
Are
ones.
they
Yeah.
these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went 15 fucking years for these shoes. Worth it. Worth it. Love them.
Oh.
So this brings me to my second last question. What special item is still on your wish list?
I don't have anything on my wish list because I have so many nice items of clothing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing on my wish list. There are things
Okay.
that I do always look for, but I just like looking online also because I have a platform and I share my finds with like
Yeah,
the people of my Patreon community. So like I never stop looking, but I have nothing on my personal wish list. I do not need any clothing. I don't need
that's very
anything.
true.
At this point, clothing is like a hobby. Like, oh, I found this really cool brand that I really like, and I found, you know, this item on eBay from several years ago. I will buy that for $20, you know, but like I don't need anything, realistically speaking.
Okay.
Nothing,
Yeah.
not a new
Mm-hmm.
coat, not a new jacket, no new shoes. I am good.
That's a really lovely thing to realize.
I did get something recently in the mail though, which I was gonna share on Instagram. Hold on. I'll show you. It's right here. One
Please,
second.
please, please, please.
So one of the things that I do buy is I buy my jewelry secondhand.
Yeah.
And I was going to do like a video for Instagram, so you're getting like preview. I love looking for like Givenchy jewelry from the Riccardo Tisci time period,
Yeah, now
because
you're
he
more
was like
fashionable
an
than I am
amazing
because
creative.
I'm like,
He was a creative director that was amazing, and he did a lot of fun shark tooth stuff. And so one of the things that I want, these earrings that are
ooh,
like,
they're dope. Okay, yeah.
aren't they
Yeah.
cool? So,
Oh,
and
star
this is the
stud.
best part. If your ears aren't pierced, it's magnetic. It's a magnetic clip-on. So you can put it anywhere
Nice.
and it's just magnetic.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
these were like, I think
Nice.
these were like several $100s on Vestiaire on when they first, I don't know what the full price is. I should look it up, but I paid 60 for this on Vestiaire. I would happily pay 60 pounds for a piece of Givenchy earrings. I'll show you, I'll demonstrate how
Oh yes,
it
please.
looks.
I'm sure they're gonna look absolutely stunning.
They just fit like that.
Okay, yeah. I really
It's
admire
cool,
those.
right?
They're cool. I know, not my style, but they're
They're
like
really
really cool. Yeah, I
they're
could not pull
really
them off.
cool. And so
I'm
like
doing it.
I love going to buy like vintage jewelry and stuff like that. Like, but once again, could I afford like Givenchy earrings when they were on the runway? No. Can I afford them for 60 pounds secondhand? Absolutely, yes, I can.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I recently my black purse, kind of like the handle broke and it was just really not fixable anymore. And I'm like, black purse. I'm tricky with purses. And then I found a John. Now I'm gonna mess up his name. Pretty sure. Like the retired Irish designer John Roja. I'm gonna mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I found one on Vestiaire and I bought it for like $20.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. This is the thing. Like you have like a bag or something that like wears out, and then you're like, oh, and then you like wait and
Yeah.
you look on eBay, you look on Vestiaire Collective, and someone is always selling the exact same
Yeah.
item.
But that's the
Why?
thing,
Because
right? That's the
clothing
wish
is
list. I
super
know
abundant.
I
This
don't
this
need the
is why
bag, but
you don't actually like need anything in stores
yeah.
right now, because there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of that item available or will be in a matter of mere months. Like there is pretty much next to nothing that I have not found on resale that I have wanted in the past.
Yeah.
Like literally, we're talking runway fashion, like blazers that cost like $2,000 that I'm literally getting for like 85. Like seriously. So
Well.
this idea of like need and like, oh, you gotta rush out and get it. It's completely fabricated, babes. It will be there and resell in secondhand. Someone will sell it.
Yeah.
But do you
And if
actually
not, you
really
will find
even,
something just as nice.
and do you really need it? Will you die if you don't have it? Will you not be able to live without it?
Did you die because you didn't get it? Yeah.
Did you die?
Did you die?
My cat would say yes when it comes to being fed in the morning. In fact, she did die because she didn't get fed at 6 a.m.
Well, that's fair. This is just very typical feline behavior, so she is excused. But like, no, bitch, you did not die. So last but not least, before I let you go, what book or what book you're currently reading or what audiobook you're currently listening to?
Oh, okay. So I've got a few in the works because I review books for my big newsletter. I'm currently listening to Sally Rooney's new one,
Yeah,
Intermezzo.
on the
And
list.
I am currently reading a multitude of books. I'm trying to actually finish 20 books by the edge of my bedside table before the
You're
end of
worse
the
than I
year.
am. I only have like
Yeah.
5.
No,
Kudos.
I've got 20, and I think I can do
Imaginary
it if
hat.
I actually just if I put some like real gusto into it. So like, girl, I could write you a list, but let's just say I'm reading the new Sally
That's
Rooney right
fine.
now.
Because all the books recommended by my guests, and of course your own book too, Consumed, is linked on the Scenic Book Club page. So whenever you need something new to read, go there. And that's another example on a really like super teeny tiny small scale. I've been asked, by people of like, oh, why don't you link from like that page, that book club page, to like Amazon, so you could get like some
Because we hate
affiliate money. And
Amazon.
then I'm like, no, I fucking hate Amazon. Like,
Because
how
we
can I
hate
do a
Amazon.
Scenic Route
Amazon
book
is the
club
problem.
page and then link to Amazon? So I say at the top, please go support your local bookshop. Like,
Yeah.
no, I maybe could make $20 a month, whatever. I have no fucking idea about affiliate stuff,
Right.
but no, like how
Our
how
bookshop,
could
you can actually become an affiliate for bookshop.org if you wanted to. I think they have an affiliate program. And they're like, they work with
would
all
be
the
better
Yankees.
than,
So like
yeah.
there you go. So you know, there are even other affiliate programs that you can do, you know?
Yeah. So with that, we end. Don't go buy books at Amazon
Don't buy books from Amazon, please don't. Like, and
or
this is
anything
the
else
other
for that
thing,
matter.
like
But
Amazon has been such a negative impact on the like book industry that if you don't list your book on Amazon, it doesn't actually get like any sales at all. That's the sad thing. Like when I wrote Consumed, I came to my publisher and I was like, so what if I didn't want to have my book
like,
on
I'm really
Amazon?
smug about
And
it.
like, oh yeah. And they were just like, you would
Bitch,
not
no.
sell a single book and all of our hard work and labor would be for nothing. And I'm like,
That's
oh, ha ha
brutal.
ha ha.
That's
So
brutal.
that
Ha
is
ha
why
ha.
my book
Okay.
is on Amazon because they control so much of the market.
Wow.
But I beg of you, please buy it from your local indie. And like, I also want to say it was actually a bestseller on Amazon. I will not ever like put that as like a feather in my cap because I'm like, no, I want you to make it a bestseller with your independent bookshops. There are some people who care about the environment that are like best-selling author, and I know that they're referring to the Amazon numbers, and I just think it's mega shady.
Oh, it's shady as fuck. Like, yeah. Okay. But hey,
Yeah, it's very shady. But
yeah.
yes, I was a bestseller in like environmental books when it came out. But I was also a bestseller on bookshop.org and libro.fm. So there you go.
There you go. That's it. So
Yeah.
go read Consumed.
Yes,
I'm
please.
actually one of those awful people who like do highlights and like fold pages and shit because I'm
That's
like,
not awful.
this
It's
is
good.
something really smart she said, so I better remember.
Yeah, no, that's not awful. I think,
It's just what I do.
have fun with the book. There's actually a section where I think it's like list things. So you're supposed to like write things in the
Oh,
book,
it's
I
kind of like the
thought.
series like Wreck This Book.
Yeah, like maybe we killed that section. I don't remember, but it
I
was
don't
supposed to
think
be
it's
like
in
that.
there.
So okay, so it probably got like cut by my publisher because it was too long. But either way, I have no problem with you marking your book. Have at it. Have fun, kids.
Well, with that, Asha, thank you so much for being on the Scenic Route with me. It was a blast.
Thank you for having me. I have to dip out really quickly because I have to call my agent. But I appreciate you having me. It's been a great chat.